The stars looked different today. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the empty space beyond Pluto, through the main screen. Something was wrong. The sensors showed nothing unusual, but Jake felt it in his bones. He had been flying through space for 15 years, and he knew when something did not belong. "Sir, we have a problem," called out Lieutenant Lisa Carter from her station. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her judgment. "There's something big appearing on our long-range sensors." Really big. Jake walked over to look at her screen. The readings made no sense. Whatever was out there was the size of a small moon, and it had appeared from nowhere. No ship could move that fast. No technology they knew about could make something that large just show up without warning. "How long has it been there?" Jake asked. "About 2 minutes, sir. It just appeared." Like someone turned on a light switch. The bridge crew was getting nervous. Jake could see it in their faces. Chief Engineer Pete Williams was already running checks on all their systems. Navigator Amy Foster was plotting escape routes. These were good people who had signed up to explore space and maybe meet aliens someday. They had not signed up for this. "Any response to our communications?" Jake asked. "Nothing, sir. We've tried everything. Radio signals, laser pulses, even basic math sequences. The thing is just sitting there." Jake made a decision. "Take us closer. Nice and slow. If that thing wanted to hurt us, it could have done it already." The ship moved forward through the darkness. As they got closer, the alien structure became clearer on their screens. It was massive and black with strange patterns covering its surface. The patterns seemed to move and change as they watched. Near the bottom was a single opening that looked like a docking bay. "Sir, the opening is getting bigger," reported Amy. "I think it wants us to go inside, or it's getting ready to swallow us." "Hole," muttered Pete from his station. Jake smiled. Pete always expected the worst. It was what made him a good engineer. "What do you think, Lisa? Should we accept the invitation?" "The structure doesn't match any known technology, sir. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database, but there's no sign of weapons or hostile intent." "Just because we can't see weapons doesn't mean they aren't there," Pete said. "That thing could vaporize us without breaking a sweat." Jake nodded. Pete was right to be careful, but humans had not gotten to the stars by playing it safe. "Take us in, Amy, nice and easy." The docking bay was huge. Their ship looked like a toy inside it. As soon as they were fully inside, the opening sealed behind them. The crew tensed, but nothing else happened. Air pumps started working, and soon the bay had breathable atmosphere. "Well, that's polite," Jake said. "They're giving us air to breathe." "Sir, I'm getting readings from their computer systems," Lisa said with excitement in her voice. "They're trying to interface with our computers. Some kind of universal translator program." "Let them in, but keep it isolated from our main systems," Jake ordered. "We don't want them taking control of our ship." Minutes passed while the alien computer system worked. Then suddenly every screen on the bridge lit up with text. The words were in perfect English. "Species number 7847. You call yourselves humans. You are from the third planet of the star you call Sol. You have achieved faster than light travel. You must now prove your worthiness to join the galactic community." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. 7,847 species. That meant there were at least that many intelligent races in the galaxy. And apparently they all had to take some kind of test. The message continued. "You will send your finest representatives to face the trial of absolute survival. This trial has been given to every species that reaches the stars. Success grants you access to galactic civilization. Failure results in permanent quarantine of your species." "Sir, what does that mean exactly?" asked Bobby Chen. He was the youngest member of the crew and sometimes asked the questions everyone else was thinking. "It means if we fail this test, humanity gets locked away from the rest of the galaxy forever," Jake said quietly. "How many species have passed this test?" Lisa asked the alien computer. 0 species have successfully completed the trial of absolute survival." The bridge went completely silent. Jake could hear the soft hum of the air recyclers and the quiet beeping of their instruments. 7,846 species had taken this test. All of them had failed. "Sir, maybe we should go back and get some experts," suggested Amy. "Scientists, philosophers, military specialists, people who are trained for this kind of thing." Jake looked around at his crew. They were ordinary people doing extraordinary work. Lisa was from a small town in Ohio. Pete grew up fixing cars in Detroit. Amy learned to fly planes in Alaska before joining the space program. Bobby had been a computer programmer before becoming a navigator. None of them were special in any obvious way, but they were here. They were the humans who had made contact with this alien intelligence. They were the ones who had to make the choice. The trial will begin in 1 standard hour, the computer announced. You may bring up to 12 representatives. They will face 10 scenarios designed to test every aspect of survival capability. Previous species have included master strategists, brilliant scientists, perfect physical specimens, and beings of pure energy. All have failed. What exactly do these trials involve? Jake asked. Survival scenarios of increasing difficulty. Extreme environments, hostile creatures, impossible puzzles, moral dilemmas, and tests of physical and mental endurance. Each scenario has been designed to push intelligent beings beyond their breaking point. Jake thought about this. Every species had failed. Master strategists and brilliant scientists had all given up. Beings of pure energy had found the trials too difficult. What chance did a bunch of humans have? Then he remembered something his grandfather had told him long ago. His grandfather had been a soldier in a terrible war. He had survived things that should have killed him. When Jake asked him how he had made it through, his grandfather had smiled and said something simple. Boy, when things get really bad, you just put your head down and keep walking. And you help the person next to you do the same thing. Computer, how long do we have to decide? Jake asked. You have 53 minutes remaining. Jake looked at his crew again. They were scared, but they were not running. They were still at their stations doing their jobs. Pete was making sure their ship was ready for anything. Lisa was monitoring the alien systems. Amy was studying the docking bay layout. Bobby was backing up all their data in case something went wrong. These were not superhuman warriors or brilliant philosophers. They were just people who showed up and did their work even when things got scary. Well, team, Jake said with a smile. Looks like we're going to make history. One way or another. Jake Morrison and his crew of 11 other humans walked through the alien station. The hallways were huge and strange. The walls seemed to be alive with patterns that moved and shifted. The gravity changed direction without warning. Sometimes they walked on the floor, and sometimes they walked on what should have been the ceiling. The air felt thick and heavy, like walking through invisible soup. Dr. Susan Clark was fascinated by everything she saw. She was their science officer, and she loved mysteries. The bioluminescent patterns suggest this technology is partially organic, she said while taking readings with her scanner. Amazing adaptation of living systems to work with machines. I don't care how amazing it is, muttered Pete Williams. This place gives me the creeps. Nothing should be able to change gravity like this. Stay alert, everyone, Jake said. We don't know the rules here, so we stick together. They had been walking for 20 minutes when they entered a massive chamber. The ceiling was so high they could not see it in the dim light. Along the walls were thousands of holographic displays. Each display showed the face of a different alien creature. Jake saw beings that looked like giant insects, others that seemed to be made of crystal, and some that were just clouds of energy with eyes. Above, every single face was the same word written in red. Letters. Failed. 7,846 failures, whispered Bobby Chen. That's a lot of dead dreams. A voice filled the chamber. It was musical and beautiful, but somehow cold at the same time. Welcome, humans of Sol 3. You are the 7,847th species to face this trial. Before you are the records of those who came before. Jake looked at the endless rows of failed species. So many different types of life. So many civilizations that had reached for the stars only to be turned away. The Zephyrians were master strategists and logicians, the voice continued. They could calculate the outcome of a battle before it began. They failed. The crystalline collective were beings of pure mathematical thought. They could solve any equation in seconds. They failed. The void swimmers evolved in the vacuum of space itself. They needed no air and feared no cold. They also failed. What did they fail at exactly? Asked Dr. Clark. They failed to survive the trials. 10 scenarios designed to test every aspect of intelligent life. Each challenge has destroyed civilizations. Each trial has sent species fleeing back to their homeworlds to live in isolation forever. Amy Foster raised her hand like she was in school. Can you tell us what these trials involve? The trials test survival in conditions that would destroy normal life. Crushing gravity, poisonous atmospheres, predators designed to kill, puzzles with no solutions, and moral choices with no right answers. Previous species have lasted an average of 4 minutes and 37 seconds in the first trial alone. Lisa Carter was studying her scanner readings. Sir, the computer systems here are incredibly advanced. They have detailed files on every species that has attempted these trials. The failure rate is 100%. Until now, Jake said with more confidence than he felt. You seem remarkably calm for beings facing certain failure, the voice observed. We're not facing certain failure, Bobby Chen said. We're facing unknown challenges. That's different. Dr. Clark was walking among the holographic displays studying the failed species. Interesting, she muttered. Computer, what were the environmental conditions on the home worlds of these failed species? Please clarify the nature of your inquiry. What was the gravity, atmosphere, temperature, and general living conditions on their planets? The alien computer processed this request. Average gravity 0.7 standard units. Atmospheric composition optimal for their biology. Temperature variations minimal. Resource availability abundant. Predator species rare or extinct. Dr. Clark smiled. Jake, I think we need to tell them about Earth. What about Earth? The voice asked. Computer, please scan our ship's database for information about our home planet, Jake said. There was a long pause. When the voice returned, it sounded confused. Your species evolved on Sol 3 designated Earth. Gravity 1.0 standard units. Atmospheric composition. 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen with various toxic trace gases. Surface temperature varies from -89 degrees to +58 degrees. Weather patterns include violent storms capable of destroying large structures. That's just the beginning, Pete Williams said with a grin. Indigenous fauna includes organisms capable of delivering lethal toxins, crushing bite forces exceeding 1,500 pounds per square inch, and aggressive territorial behavior. Ocean predators reach lengths of 20 meters. Atmospheric phenomena include electrical discharges of over 1 billion volts. Seismic activity regularly destroys populated areas. The voice paused for a very long time. Your species evolved on a Class 12 death world? We just call it home, said Amy Foster cheerfully. This is impossible. No intelligent life can evolve on a Class 12 death world. The environmental pressures are too extreme. Well, we did, Bobby Chen said, and we kind of like it there. Dr. Clark was clearly enjoying this. Computer, would you like to know about Australian wildlife? I am unfamiliar with this reference. Australia is a continent on Earth where evolution decided to make everything poisonous, venomous, or capable of crushing human bones. The humans who live there consider it a nice place for a vacation. You are telling me that humans voluntarily visit areas of extreme danger for recreation. Oh, that's nothing, Lisa Carter laughed. Wait until you hear about extreme sports. Jake was beginning to understand something important. Every species that had taken these trials came from paradise worlds. Perfect gravity, perfect air, perfect temperatures, no predators, no disasters. They had never faced real hardship. When the trials pushed them into dangerous situations, they had no idea how to cope. Humans were different. Humans came from a world that tried to kill them every single day. They had learned to survive in conditions that would terrify most galactic civilizations. Computer, Jake said. I think there's been a misunderstanding about what constitutes a difficult survival scenario. Please explain. Well, for starters, your first trial involves crushing gravity and poisonous air, right? Correct. Previous species were unable to move or breathe in such conditions. Dr. Clark here grew up in Alaska, where the air temperature can drop to 50 below zero. Pete is from Detroit, where the air pollution would probably qualify as poisonous on most worlds. Amy learned to fly in mountain conditions where the air is thin and the weather can change from clear skies to deadly storms in minutes. You are suggesting that your species is naturally adapted to survive conditions that destroy other civilizations. We're not suggesting it, Jake said with a smile. We're telling you. Computer, how much time do we have before the trials begin? 27 minutes remain. Jake looked around at his crew. They were not scared anymore. They were getting excited. These people had spent their whole lives dealing with challenges that would break most alien species. Now they were being told they had to face 10 scenarios designed to test survival skills. It was like asking a fish if it knew how to swim. All right, everyone, Jake said. Let's go show the galaxy what humans are made of. The trials began without warning. One moment, Jake Morrison and his crew were standing in the alien chamber, and the next moment they were somewhere completely different. The air was thick and hard to breathe. The gravity was crushing them down like a giant hand. Strange sounds echoed from the darkness around them. "Well, this is fun," Pete Williams said through gritted teeth. He was already checking his equipment to make sure everything still worked under the heavy gravity. Current gravity is approximately 2.8 standard units. Dr. Clark reported while scanning their surroundings. Atmospheric composition includes sulfur compounds and methane. Definitely not breathable for most species. Jake looked around at his team. They were moving slower because of the gravity, but they were not panicking. Lisa Carter was helping Bobby Chen adjust his breathing mask. Amy Foster was checking the sealed environment suits they had put on before entering the trial chamber. "Computer, how long did the previous species last in this scenario?" Jake asked. "The crystalline collective lasted 3 minutes and 42 seconds before requesting emergency extraction. The void swimmers managed 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Both groups suffered complete psychological breakdown from the environmental stress." "Psychological breakdown from this," Amy laughed. "This is like a heavy workout day on Earth." Something roared in the darkness beyond their lights. It sounded big and angry and hungry. The alien computer voice seemed excited. "Phase 2 of Trial 1 now beginning. Indigenous predators will attempt to eliminate test subjects." 3 creatures emerged from the shadows. They were huge reptilian things with too many teeth and claws like daggers. Their eyes glowed red and they moved fast despite their size. "Oh, come on," Bobby Chen said with annoyance. "Space dinosaurs, really?" The creatures charged at the humans expecting easy prey. What they got instead was 12 people who had trained for exactly this kind of situation. Jake and his crew moved like they had practiced this 1,000 times. They formed a defensive circle, used their equipment to create barriers, and began working together to drive off the attackers. Dr. Clark was fascinated even while dodging claws. Remarkable muscular development. The bone structure suggests they evolved in this high-gravity environment. Probably ambush predators based on their movement patterns. "Can you study them after we deal with them, please?" Pete called out while using his engineering tools to create a makeshift weapon. The fight was over in less than 10 minutes. The predators retreated after realizing these small beings were more dangerous than they looked. The humans had not killed any of them, but they had made it clear that attacking was a bad idea. "Trial 1 complete," the computer announced. Duration 43 minutes and 17 seconds. Previous record was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. This performance is unprecedented. The scenery changed again. Now they were in a maze made of metal walls that reached up into darkness. The air was filled with a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere. Trial 2 beginning. Test subjects must navigate the labyrinth while being hunted by invisible predators. Previous species have shown complete disorientation and panic within minutes. "Invisible predators," Lisa said thoughtfully. "Computer, are these predators completely invisible or just hard to see?" "The predators use advanced camouflage technology, making them nearly undetectable to most sensor systems." Amy Foster smiled. "Nearly undetectable is not the same as completely invisible." The humans spread out through the maze but stayed in communication using their radio systems. They moved carefully and watched for signs that were too subtle for most species to notice. A disturbed dust pattern here, a slight change in air movement there, the faint sound of breathing that did not match their own. Within 20 minutes, they had detected and tracked 3 of the invisible hunters. Instead of running or hiding, the humans turned the tables. They began hunting the hunters. "Got one," Bobby Chen whispered over the radio, moving northeast toward Amy's position. "I see him," Amy replied. "Or at least I see where he isn't." The invisible creatures found themselves being tracked by prey that refused to act like prey. The humans used teamwork and communication to surround the predators. They did not try to kill them, but they made it clear who was really in control of the hunt. Dr. Clark managed to get close enough to one of the creatures to take readings. Fascinating optical camouflage system. The light-bending technology is incredibly sophisticated. I would love to study this further. Trial 2 complete, the computer said, and this time there was definite confusion in its voice. Duration 37 minutes. Previous species average was 12 minutes before complete psychological collapse. The maze disappeared and was replaced by a simple room with 2 doors. Above one door was a sign that said, "Save your crew." Above the other door was a sign that said, "Save the civilians." Trial 3 presents an impossible moral choice. the computer explained. Behind door 1 are your fellow humans in mortal danger. Behind door 2 are innocent alien civilians also in mortal danger. You can save one group or the other, but not both. Choose. Jake looked at the 2 doors and then at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. This was not a choice between saving their friends or saving strangers. This was a puzzle with an obvious third solution. Computer, Jake said, what happens if we don't choose either door? You must choose. The scenario requires a decision. But what if we make our own door? Pete asked. He was already studying the walls looking for weak points. That is not within the parameters of the test. Since when do humans stay within parameters? Lisa laughed. The crew got to work. Pete used his engineering skills to find the power systems for the room. Lisa hacked into the computer controls for the doors. Dr. Clark analyzed the structure of the walls. Amy and Bobby worked together to create tools from their equipment. Within 15 minutes, they had bypassed the entire scenario. Instead of choosing between the 2 doors, they created a third option. They opened both doors at the same time and saved everyone. This is not how the trial is supposed to function, the computer protested. Maybe that's why everyone else failed, Jake said. They tried to follow rules that didn't make sense instead of solving the actual problem. You cannot simply ignore the parameters of a test. Watch us, Amy said cheerfully. Trial 3 complete, the computer announced after a long pause. Duration 18 minutes. No previous species has ever attempted to circumvent the scenario parameters. This approach was not anticipated. Jake looked around at his crew. They were tired but not broken. Challenged but not defeated. They were treating these deadly trials like interesting problems to solve. Computer, Jake said. How many trials are left? 7 trials remain. Good, Bobby Chen said with a grin. This is just getting interesting. Trial 4 began with the humans standing on a platform suspended over what looked like an endless pit. The platform was slowly crumbling away beneath their feet. Sharp metal spikes rose from the darkness below. The air was filled with the sound of grinding machinery and distant screams. Classic death trap scenario, Pete Williams observed calmly. Previous species probably panicked and fell into the pit. The trial tests problem-solving abilities under extreme stress, the computer voice explained. Test subjects must find a way to safety before the platform completely disintegrates. Average survival time for previous species was 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Dr. Clark was already examining the platform structure with her scanner. The decay pattern is predictable. We have approximately 12 minutes before total collapse. More than enough time, Jake Morrison said. Everyone spread out and look for anything we can use. The humans did not waste time being afraid. They moved across the crumbling platform like they were solving a routine engineering problem. Amy Foster found that some of the falling pieces could be used as building materials. Bobby Chen discovered that the machinery sounds had a pattern that revealed safe spots. Lisa Carter hacked into the control systems and found ways to slow down the decay process. Got it? Pete called out. The whole thing is just a big machine. If we can get to the control center, we can shut down the death trap program. Working together, they built a bridge from the falling debris. They used their equipment as tools and their teamwork as strategy. Within 10 minutes, they had reached the control center and turned off the deadly machinery. Trial 4 complete, the computer announced. Duration 9 minutes and 57 seconds. Solution method unprecedented. Previous species focused on escape rather than neutralization of the threat. Trial 5 placed them in complete darkness with sounds of approaching danger from every direction. The temperature was dropping fast and they could hear things moving in the shadows that sounded hungry and mean. Sensory deprivation combined with environmental hazards, the computer explained. Test subjects typically experience rapid psychological breakdown when deprived of visual input while under threat. Anyone got a light? Bobby Chen asked casually. Better than that, Amy Foster said. I've got an idea. Instead of stumbling around blind and panicked, the humans used their other senses. They listened to the sounds around them and figured out what was making them. They felt the air movement to understand the layout of the space. They worked together to create light sources from their equipment. Dr. Clark was in her element. Based on the acoustic patterns, I would estimate we are in a cavern approximately 60 meters wide. The approaching entities are likely quadrupedal with a mass of roughly 200 kilograms each. So basically big dogs, Lisa Carter said. I can work with that. The humans did something that no other species had tried. Instead of treating the creatures as enemies, they treated them as animals that might be scared or confused. They made calm sounds, offered food from their rations, and showed no fear or aggression. Within minutes, the dangerous predators had become curious, companions following the humans around like friendly pets. This outcome was not anticipated, the computer said with obvious confusion. Previous species either fled in terror or attempted to fight the guardian creatures. Maybe they just needed someone to be nice to them, Bobby Chen said while scratching behind the ear of a creature the size of a small car. Trial 6 tested their ability to solve impossible mathematical puzzles while hanging upside down and being spun in circles. The motion was designed to cause severe disorientation and nausea. Previous species had vomited and passed out within minutes. The humans just treated it like a really intense carnival ride. This is actually kind of fun. Amy Foster laughed while working on equations. It's like being at the county fair. Speak for yourself, Pete Williams said, looking a little green. I never liked roller coasters. But they solved the puzzles anyway. Dr. Clark worked on the mathematical problems while the others helped her by calling out numbers and checking her work. They treated the disorientation as just another obstacle to work around rather than something that would stop them. Trial 7 put them in a room that was filling with poisonous gas. They had to find the exit before the gas killed them. But every door they tried led to more dangerous rooms. Previous species had died from panic and poor decision-making. Standard maze with environmental pressure, Jake observed. The trick is not to panic and think clearly. The humans worked systematically. They tested each door carefully, mapped out the safe routes, and helped each other avoid the worst hazards. When the gas got too thick, they improvised breathing filters from their clothing and equipment. You know, Lisa Carter said while testing another door. This is like escape rooms back on Earth except with actual consequences. At least no one is charging us $20 to play, Bobby Chen added. They found the exit in 15 minutes. The previous record had been 43 minutes and most species never made it out alive. Trial 8 locked them in tiny individual cells barely large enough for their bodies. The walls pressed in from all sides. The air was stale and hot. It was designed to trigger severe claustrophobia and panic attacks in intelligent beings who were used to open spaces. The humans started singing. You have got to be kidding me, the computer voice said. You are treating psychological torture as a social activity. Old army song, Jake explained. Helps pass the time and keeps morale up. My grandmother used to sing this when she was doing laundry in the basement, Amy added. Small spaces don't bother humans much. We're actually pretty social creatures. We like being close together when things get tough. They sang songs, told stories, and played word games through the thin walls. What was supposed to break their spirits became a bonding experience. Trial 9 tested their physical endurance by making them climb an impossible mountain while carrying heavy weights in extreme cold. Previous species had given up from exhaustion or hypothermia. The humans treated it like a training exercise. They took turns carrying the weights, shared their body heat, and encouraged each other when things got difficult. Dr. Clark explained the science of mountain climbing, while Pete figured out better ways to distribute the load. This is actually easier than basic training, Bobby Chen said while breathing hard. At least nobody is yelling at us. The drill sergeants back home would call this a light workout, Amy agreed. They reached the top in half the time it had taken any previous species. Most other groups had not made it past the halfway point. 9 trials complete, the computer announced. Performance levels exceed all previous records by substantial margins. 1 trial remains. Jake looked around at his crew. They were tired and dirty and beat up, but they were still together. Still helping each other. Still treating impossible challenges like problems that could be solved with teamwork and determination. Bring on Trial 10, he said. We're just getting started. Trial 10 began differently than the others. Instead of danger and death traps, the humans found themselves in a comfortable room with soft chairs and pleasant lighting. There was food and water and everything they needed to rest and recover from their ordeal. This is unexpected, Dr. Clark said while examining the room with her scanner. No environmental hazards detected. No hidden threats. Just a normal, comfortable space. Maybe the final trial is just letting us rest, Bobby Chen suggested hopefully. I could use a nap after all that climbing. But Jake Morrison felt something was wrong. 9 trials had tried to kill them with physical danger and impossible challenges. It did not make sense for the final test to be this easy. Computer, Jake called out. What exactly is the 10th trial? The melodious voice that had been guiding them through all the previous tests was quiet for a long moment. When it finally spoke, it sounded different, less formal and more uncertain. The 10th trial is the most difficult of all. It has destroyed more civilizations than all the other 9 combined. What do we have to do? Lisa Carter asked. You have to wait. Wait for what? Pete Williams said. Just wait. Sit in this room and wait. There are no puzzles to solve, no enemies to fight, no mountains to climb. There's nothing to do but sit here and think about your situation. Amy Foster looked confused. That's it. We just sit here. You sit here, and you think about the fact that your entire species depends on your success. You think about how 7,846 other groups of the galaxy's finest individuals have sat in this same room. You think about how all of them failed and doomed their civilizations to eternal isolation. The computer paused, and when it continued, there was something almost sad in its voice. You think about how you are just 12, ordinary people with no special training for this situation. You think about how your families and friends and everyone you have ever loved will spend the rest of their lives trapped on one world if you fail. You think about the weight of an entire species resting on your shoulders. Jake was beginning to understand. This was not a test of strength or intelligence or problem solving. This was a test of hope, a test of whether intelligent beings could maintain their sanity and determination when faced with the full weight of impossible responsibility. Previous species have lasted an average of 47 minutes before requesting emergency extraction, the computer continued. The longest any group has endured was 3 hours and 12 minutes before they suffered complete psychological breakdown. What happens when they break down? Dr. Clark asked quietly. They begin to panic. They convince themselves that they are not worthy of such responsibility. They decide that their species does not deserve to join the galactic community. They choose failure rather than face the possibility of letting everyone down. The room fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew and saw the weight of realization settling on their faces. This was it. This was why every other species had failed. Not because they lacked strength or intelligence, but because they could not handle the pressure of knowing that everything depended on them. The minutes ticked by slowly. Jake could feel the weight of Earth pressing down on him. 7 billion people who had no idea that their future was being decided in this alien room. His wife Sarah, who was probably wondering why he had not called. His kids who were waiting for Daddy to come home from his latest space mission. This is heavy, Bobby Chen said after 20 minutes of silence. Tell me about it, Amy Foster agreed. I keep thinking about my little sister. She wants to be an astronaut someday. If we fail, she will never get the chance to see the stars. My grandmother survived 3 wars and a plague, Bobby continued. She always said the worst thing that could happen to a person was giving up hope. But this is different. This is not just about us. Pete Williams was staring at his hands. I keep thinking about all those alien faces we saw. Thousands of civilizations that made it to the stars just like us. All of them failed this same test. What makes us think we are any different? Dr. Clark was quiet for a long time before speaking. Do you know what I keep thinking about? She finally said. I keep thinking about how the computer said we were from a Class 12 death world. Yeah, Lisa Carter said. So what? So every other species that took this test came from paradise worlds. Perfect conditions, no real challenges, no serious threats. When they got to this room and felt the weight of responsibility for their entire civilization, it was probably the first time in their lives they had ever faced something truly difficult. Jake felt a spark of understanding. But we face difficult things every day. Exactly, Dr. Clark said with growing excitement. We are from Earth. We deal with impossible pressure all the time. Every human who has ever lived has had to carry weight that seemed too heavy. Every generation has had to face challenges that seemed impossible. My great-grandfather helped build the railways, Pete said slowly. My grandfather worked in steel mills during the war. My father was a deep-sea welder. Our whole family history is just regular people doing things that seemed impossible. That's what humans do, Amy realized. We take on responsibilities that are too big for us and we figure out how to handle them anyway. The mood in the room was changing. The crushing weight of responsibility was still there, but somehow it felt different, less like a burden and more like just another challenge to face together. You know what I think, Bobby Chen said. I think the reason all those other species failed is because they tried to carry the weight alone. Look at those holographic displays we saw. Every species sent their best individuals, their smartest scientists, their strongest warriors. They sent people who were supposed to be better than everyone else. But we are not better than everyone else, Jake said with growing understanding. We are just regular people who know how to work together. That's the secret, Lisa Carter said excitedly. It's not about being strong enough to carry impossible weight by yourself. It's about being smart enough to share the load. They sat in the comfortable room for 6 hours. They talked about their families and their fears and their hopes. They shared stories about their grandparents who had survived wars and depressions and disasters. They reminded each other that humans had always faced impossible odds and found ways to keep going. When the computer finally announced that Trial 10 was complete, they were not broken or panicked. They were tired, but they were still together, still helping each other, still refusing to give up. Trial 10 complete, the computer said, and its voice was filled with wonder. Duration 6 hours and 17 minutes. New record by substantial margin. The comfortable room faded away and they found themselves back in the main chamber surrounded by thousands of holographic displays showing failed species. But now there was something new. One display showed 12 human faces with a single word in green letters. Past. Welcome to the galactic community, the computer said, and for the first time it sounded truly happy. We have been waiting a very long time for someone to show us that hope is stronger than fear.